this all working. I've got the audio. I've got the video. We've got the Jacques Villeneuve magazine nice and close up for everybody to follow along. Let's go. We're going to start off with, you know what? Let's look at the cover stories first. So we got the hot property Jacques Villeneuve, which also, why he doesn't give a damn. Doesn't that remind you of something recently? One Carlos Sainz Jr.? Well, I think it does. Let's talk about that. We also have Mika back on track. The real story behind his mid-season slump. Good old Mika Häkkinen. Think he's ever going to come back? Because I know he's still on sabbatical, right? Then we have De La Rosa, why Pedro's F1's next megastar. Spoiler alert. He kind of wasn't. And then the late shift, behind the scenes of an F1 all-nighter. And I know that's definitely something they've been trying to get away from more recently, is doing all-nighters and trying to prevent that kind of overworking. But you know what else would work for that? Maybe just getting rid of a 24 race calendar. You know? Okay, you know, we don't have to get too mad about that. We can just move along. And then we have this hilarious Tommy Hilfiger ad. This is so period from September 2000 when this magazine came out. And also, excuse me, is that Tom Mulaney? Tom Mulaney, have you been modeling for Tommy Hilfiger? LOL. You know, I feel like this style, well, actually, yeah, aside from the tucked-in shirt, it's all pretty modern. Then we get to the contents. And we got a nice little like splash page here. This is cool. I love this presentation here, you know, where we've got what mid-season slump? We explain Mika's resurgence. Okay, so that must be hacking in there. And then we got fishing and F1 have much in common, says Ross Braun. Oh man, look how young Ross Braun was here. Oh my God. It's so young. And then over here we have 86, watch out, Bridgestone. The man from Michelin is here. Oh ho, tire wars, anybody? Mm-hmm. And then Jarno Trulli signs the word dynamic. Totally mega shots. I didn't realize that the Europeans were still saying mega back then, but come on, man. Come on. We all know you're trying to throw up gang signs. That's what was cool back in the day. It was throwing up signs with your hand. And in the midnight hour, there's no working 9 to 5 in F1. Now that is true. There is no working 9 to 5 in F1. You just work your whole freaking life away. Blondie bounces back. So this, I believe, is talking about the cover story. And it was written by Valtteri Bottas, apparently. In the end, the important thing is ability. Sheer, unadulterated, in the raw, white-knuckle talent. Yes, giving reliable feedback to engineers is crucial, indubitably. Handling media is important, but even in this mega-technical, ultra-opulent, PR-obsessed era, the single most effective way of making a car go faster is to put into it a faster man. Our cover star this month, Jacques Villeneuve, is a case in point. Sometimes truculent with his engineers, and I had to look up truculent, that just means kind of like belligerent, or, you know, aggressive. Often neglectful of his sponsors and rarely cooperative with the world's press, he has nonetheless been the pivot around which this year's Who Goes Where merry-go-round has spun. Or as we like to call it nowadays, the silly season. And the explanation for his star billing is nothing other than his otherworldly pace, starkly apparent for all to see. He has chosen to remain with BAR, British American Racing, for the next 3 years, and may therefore see out his Formula One career with them. Many romantics would love to see him in a Ferrari, possibly carrying the number 27 made famous by his late father, though Gilles in fact only started 20 of his 67 Grands Prix, so decaled. Others, including Summit McLaren, wonder what he might have achieved over the past 3 seasons had an MP4 13, 14, or 15 been made available to him. Most recently, he has been offered the Earth to lead Renault's return to F1, an opportunity he considered very carefully for some weeks, and then declined. I'm kind of glad he did, because it was nice to see Alonso be the one who won with Renault and not Villeneuve. At BAR, he will be able to swagger his way around the GP paddocks in whatever garb he sees fit, his now sparse hair dyed any color he likes, and with Honda power behind him, he'll win races. Pop star girlfriend by his side, he will once again become F1's main attraction. From pages 36 to 41, we tell you exactly what makes him quick. From 42 to 48, he tells us exactly what makes him tick. Neat. That's just neat. Isn't it neat? You know what was neat? Back in the day when a Canadian F1 driver was able to make it on merit and didn't have to buy their way onto the grid. You know, if we could take the pace of Jacques Villeneuve with the personality of Nicholas Latifi, we could have a true Canadian superstar. Oh, that's a cool picture. Michael Schumacher at the A1 ring. 2:02 p.m., 16 July. Darren Heath. Oh, they even say Canon EOS 1V, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the lenses and stuff. That's super cool. Just a full spread shot. Okay. So, some flowers. Cool, I guess. I don't know. Oh, yeah. This is why we used to buy the magazines, huh? Look at that. That is a sweet shot. Imagine the shutter speed on this thing must have been wild. I know I just said I don't care about cameras, but also... wow. Boop. Okay. This is Eddie Irvine at Hockenheim. Cool. Just got a swirly hair color, I guess. Swirly hair pattern. There we go. Move it along. Just move it along, you know. That's just the way it goes. And moving along. Man, these are some neat old photographs. Just kind of a shame when it has to kind of be split over the fold like this, but I feel like if we pull it out far enough. Yeah, there we go. This is like, you know, when we didn't have a million hours of YouTubers to just give us as much content as we could possibly consume about every Grand Prix, you'd have to wait for the magazines, I guess. Oh, Rubens Barrichello. What's the life of being a number 2 like? When F1 Racing invited me to write a column this season, I was secretly hoping I would have the opportunity to sit down and describe my first win. I was getting a bit worried. I can tell you now, but it all changed at Hockenheim. So here they are, my thoughts and emotions, and after finally shifting that weight from my shoulders. You probably saw the pictures on the podium. I apologize now to any of you who may have felt I was too emotional. The truth is, I could barely stop myself crying virtually from the moment I took the checkered flag. I could hear Ross Brawn and Jean Todt on the radio, and I remember shouting to myself, telling myself I had done it. After that, it all happened so quickly, it now almost seems like a dream. I loved that slow-down lap more than any I have driven. It's a long lap at Hockenheim, of course, so I had time to think of my family, my wife, my friends, the Ferrari team, Ayrton Senna, and someone up above. I looked up at the sky on the podium, partly because the microphone's a little high up, so it's kind of hard to get a good angle here. Partly because the rain had helped me win this one, and partly because I was thinking again of Ayrton, of all the help and support that he gave me when I was too young really to appreciate it in full. Silvana, my wife, was not in Germany as her sister was over from Brazil, So the two of them decided to watch the race on TV. I would have loved to have stayed at Hockenheim on Sunday night for a big party with the team, but really I had no choice but to fly straight to England. When we saw each other for the first time, neither of us could speak because we were crying so much. It was maybe the moment I will treasure most from this first win. That and talking to my parents and thanking them for all the support that they too have given me. Oh, Rubens. Oh. The next morning, I woke up and the first thing I saw by my bed was the trophy. It was as if I was starting a whole new life. Suddenly, everything was different. I knew I had to test at Fiorano the next day. But instead of wishing I had a few more days off to taste the victory, I was already really looking forward to getting back into the car. The week before Hockenheim, I had tested at Mugello and Fiorano, and they had seemed like 3 long days. At Mugello, I tested alone. The circuit is great to drive on, but leaves virtually no margin for error. It is therefore very mentally tiring, particularly if you have no other cars on the track. By the time I got to Germany, I was glad I was racing again with other cars to gauge myself against. Saturday, of course, was a disaster. The ironic thing was, I woke up that morning feeling fantastic, as if something very special was going to happen. Instead, I qualified 18th. On race day, I just had this feeling I had nothing to lose. I didn't worry about the usual details of my personal preparation. We just went for a 2-stop strategy so I could pass some cars early on and then just hoped for the best. The safety car came out twice, which helped me a bit, but I think I could have had a great result even with only 1 cautionary period. As it was, I was able to come in for my second stop and rejoin in 3rd place. Then, when it rained, I just thought I'd take it lap by lap. I knew I could keep the car on the island. It was just a question of how quickly I could run. I don't necessarily like driving in the rain any more than the next guy, not in terms of visibility and spray and so forth, but I do like the challenge of finding the best line around any given corner in the wet. Every time I saw someone spin or stop for tires, I would think about changing to wets. But then Ross's voice would come on the radio saying, "Keep this up, Rubens, and you're going to win." With that thought in mind, it was going to take a lot to make me stop. Thankfully, and I mean that, everything worked out perfectly. I went from disaster to success in the space of 24 hours. That was a lesson and a weekend I'll always remember. Oh, little Rubens of yours, it's just so sweet. And there he is, celebrating his victoire with everyone. The drive for excellency. McLaren Mercedes. Finlandia vodka. Cello. Broadband for the world. Performance with power. Cello broadband puts the internet onto a whole new track. Download times are slashed. Sites can be raced through in seconds and video streams are handled with ease. Get ready for breathtaking performance. How much you want to bet this was like 2 megabits? If it was even measured in megabits yet. Ooh, James Allen. Yet again, David Coulthard is finding that, at McLaren at least, some are born more equal than others. Woo-wee! Many of you will be wondering what happened to David Coulthard's winning streak and why he seemed to come off second best within the McLaren team at the Austrian and German Grand Prix. Well, I have to admit, I feel the same way. David's victory in France was a revelation. He qualified better than his teammate, fought hard, passed Michael Schumacher aggressively, and won in commanding style. The team looked genuinely happy for him, even if their joy was tinged with concern for the under-par Mika Häkkinen. In Austria and Germany, the balance of power shifted and the wind went out of DC's sails. But it wasn't necessarily because Mika was faster. It appeared to me McLaren looked after the Finn far better in those races, as they may have been known to do in the past. It's strange. No sooner had David become a serious challenger for the title than they lined up behind Häkkinen again. On the face of it, Mika was faster in Austria. The AI ring has... A1 ring? AI ring obviously is not AI ring. The A1 ring has always been one of his favorites. No one else can carry the same awesome speed through the 2 final corners that he can. He took pole. with DC alongside. McLaren's rule is that faster qualifier has first call on race strategy. It was decided to make only one stop, but there were indications that Schumacher would go for two. To combat this, Mika went out with enough fuel to last until half distance. David had around 15 kilograms more, so he could run longer and cover Michael if he was indeed to pit twice. Crucially, this meant Coulthard's car would be about 0.3 of a second a lap slower than his teammates in the first stint. The night before the GP, McLaren boss Ron Dennis told me his drivers would be allowed to race each other the next day, because, as he put it, when you sign for McLaren, you join a team who will give you equal treatment. But after Schumacher crashed out at the start, it was clear McLaren had the day under control and opted to play it safe. About 20 laps in, the drivers were told to take it easy to protect the cars and ensure a 1-2. DC was not to be allowed to challenge for the win. His heavy fuel load had penalized him at the start as expected, so he had fallen behind, but later there might have been a chance if he pushed really hard. I said at the time on ITV that it looked like there was some negotiation going on over the radio. On the pit wall, Dennis, who oversees Mika's race effort, was talking animatedly with Dave Ryan, who looks after DC. I got the impression that Coulthard camp lost the debate. Mika probably could have won anyway because he was faster on the day, but what started out as a team plan to beat Michael ended up a compromised race for David. In Germany, he really lost out. He qualified on pole, so had first call on strategy, but his teammate took the lead at the start, which meant he had priority on pit stops. David seemed to be about to pit for his scheduled stop when the disaffected ex-Mercedes employee walked onto the track, causing the safety car to come out. It was a crunch moment, and McLaren instinctively focused on Hakkinen, calling him in for fuel and tires, and leaving David unsure what to do. Having received no message, he was compelled to complete another lap. I imagine he must have been quite close to running out of fuel. He lost 3 places and any sniff of victory. McLaren denied favoritism, arguing that all they were doing was protecting the race leader, which in both cases was Hakkinen. But from my observations of the body language and the reactions in the heat of the moment, it looked like a choice was made. I don't envy Ron Dennis. It must be like being a father of 2 children, trying to be fair but inevitably having preferences. I write this on the eve of the Hungarian GP, and I hope it will show McLaren have addressed the issue and are looking after David. If he's ever to have a chance of becoming a champion, he's going to need it. And we all know he didn't. He got second at one point, though, which is pretty cool. And James Allen. Look at you, guy. Look at you, James. Yeah, look at this young James Allen, huh? You're looking very clean cut there, bud. Oh, nice. Coke lined up for F1. Oh, Coca-Cola could enter Formula One as early as next year. The soft drinks giant had people at the Hungarian GP ostensibly to support their sponsorship of British Formula 3000 driver Justin Wilson. But it's believed they had a meeting with Bernie Ecclestone on the Sunday of the GP. No one was prepared to talk about the potential F1 deal, although one sponsorship guru said everyone in F1 has tried to woo Coke into the sport at some point. But until now, they have not been interested because the age group watching F1 was too old. Now that this has come down to include teenagers, they're definitely looking at it, although I'm not sure whether they are looking to sponsor a team or just to have signage and the official pouring rights of F1. Coke have been involved in F1 before, when they used to have their names on the podiums of the American GPs in the mid-1970s. In recent years, they have taken to only supporting NASCAR in the USA, but with the return of F1 to America next month, the timing looks just about perfect for them. Yeah, we all know how well that went. Yeah, F1 in America, that was spectacular. Minority talk to potential buyers. So this is kind of like behind the drive guy, you know what I mean? The little boxes to get a bunch of little snippets here. With their title sponsor, Telefonica, set to switch to Benetton in 2002, minority bosses are courting a new backer to buy their team. Pan American Sports Network, PSN, are in negotiations with team boss Gabriel Rumi to acquire the team. Although a deal is still some way off. We need a new investor in the team if we are to progress, said Rumi. The negotiations with PSN are ongoing and taking a bit of time. Should PSN buy into Minardi, it is likely that they would want 2 South American drivers, thereby providing a reprieve for possible Brazilian Formula One outcasts Ricardo Zonta and Pedro Diniz, and hopeful Bruna Junqueira. Mr. Cool admits to mounting pressure. For the first time this year, Michael Schumacher has expressed his concern over the pace of the McLarens. After the Hungarian GP, he said, Mika Häkkinen's pace should make me worried to some degree, but we can turn the situation around. But if we carry on like this, we obviously won't. David Coulthard, in a reaction worthy of Westminster's finest, referred to Michael's concerns as quite a frank admission. Oh, touché. Second Division GPs? A new motorsports series with teams sponsored by European football clubs could be running by 2002. Called Premier One Grand Prix, the idea is to bring football and motor racing, the most popular televised sports, together as a hoped-for rival to Formula One. Created by SMC, an Essex-based investment firm, the new series will use identical chassis and engines in a 12-race schedule. Each car will run in the livery of a major European footy team, and here the confusion starts. Yeah, I am already confused. F1 contacted Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, Newcastle United, and Tottenham Hotspur. 2 failed to reply, and 3 didn't know anything about it. McLaren's Ron Dennis is equally dismissive. I think we would be more successful if it was entered... If we entered a football team made up of GP drivers. When they say that it will be an alternative to F1, I think there is nothing for me to say other than I think they are wrong. So is it an early April Fool's or the real deal? Watch this space. Fisico caught short. Giancarlo Fisichella always has a pre-GP nap, but he got a surprising alarm call in Hungary. Fisichella, who was asleep in the Benetton motorhome naked, woke to find Naomi Campbell in his room. It was very amusing, he said. And Flavio said, what exactly, Fissy? Panis put on hold. Olivier Panis may have already signed a 2-year deal with British American Racing, but there is no way that he will replace Ricardo Zonta in the team prior to the end of this season, as was suggested at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Panis refused to comment on the subject, but his current boss, Ron Dennis, said, I can assure you that Olivier will not drive for anyone else before the end of this season. He'll finish his contract with us here. Got that, Craig? Ooh, fact. The latest pat of gossip. Kind of weird to call something fact if it's gossip, but you know, let's just see how it goes anyway. Irvine heading for a fight. Check this. A weary traveler gets into a black cab at Heathrow a few weeks back, and here's the line: Had that Eddie Irvine in my cab last night. Oh my God. Had that Eddie Irvine in my cab the other night. And how was the Irv, bearing in mind he had severe abdominal pains? He seemed okay, replied Mr. Cabby, but kept talking about wanting to get to the fight. The Lennox Lewis versus Francis Botha at the London Arena fight? Interesting. All I missed a race tales by drivers, of course, gratefully received. South of the river. That's 900 quid, mate. Hyundai, prepare to want one. AMT, the Far Eastern company who have bought the rights to Peugeot's V10 motors, could be just a front for another manufacturer. Rumors circulating in Hungary have it that Nissan or Hyundai are actually funding the project, but they don't want to badge the engine as such until it begins to get results. Flavio branches out. Renault's Flavio Briatore could go back to owning the Prost team, which he sold in 1997. Though John Alesi said in Hungary, the good news is Alain Prost will stay in Formula One next year, Flavio and Alain were seen in earnest discussion during the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend. Where this leaves Flav's Benetton operation remains unclear. Man, there is so much here. Bernie seemed to confirm the rumors of 20,000 working girls being bussed into Budapest for the Hungarian GP. People say there isn't enough glamour in the paddock, he said. I hear there's a village full of girls. I'm going to bring them in tomorrow. Who said F1 isn't classy? Woof. Woof. Ugh. Man, this is crazy. Man, what is all this stuff? Like, I thought, oh, I'm going to sit down and do this for like, I don't know, an hour or so. But like, there seems to be hours worth of content in here. This is actually, this magazine was great value. And look at how well it's produced. It's time to make your mind up. Oh, it's make your mind up time for 2001 with Ferrari and McLaren keeping their driver status quo next year. One man has been pivotal to the market. Jacques Villeneuve. The 3-month hoo-ha surrounding Villeneuve's potential switch from BAR to Benetton and thus to Renault left an agonizing wait for others. Had Jacques gone to the French manufacturer, Heinz-Harald Frentzen was primed to fill his shoes at BAR. With Ricardo Zonta taking HHF's Heinz-Harald Frentzen's vacant seat at Jordan when Jacques Villeneuve opted to stay with BAR for a further 3 years. Frentzen immediately re-signed with Jordan, leaving Zonta more than likely without a drive. On a smaller scale, the future of Mika Salo will have knock-on effects at the lower end of the grid. At present, the Finn has yet to make up his mind between another year with Sauber and a lucrative testing contract with Toyota. The fate of his teammate, Pedro Diniz, rests largely on Mika's choice. At the back, Marc Gené's hopes of staying at Minardi depend on whether PSN buy them. See page 23. If they do, they'd want a Brazilian in the team, not a Spaniard. As you can see, F1's not just about talent. So this is a really cool, grid showing who's where. We've got, Williams, the Schumacher, and Montoya. And we got McLaren with Hakkinen and Coulthard. Ferrari with Schumacher and Barrichello. And over at Benetton, got Fisichella and Button. BAR, Villeneuve and Panis. Then Jordan with Frentzen and Trulli. Sauber with Salo and Diniz. Arrows, De La Rosa and Verstappen. And then Jaguar, we've got Irvine and Bertie, which I don't really know anything about Bertie. And Minardi also with Mazzacane and Gené. Again, I don't know anything about them. Then Prost with Alesi and Heidfeld. Wow, I guess I didn't realize Heidfeld was around so early and I guess for so long. Oh, man. This is cool. I guess we're probably not going to have time to read every single line of every article in here. I really wanted to set this up to be like a trial run to do this again in the future. But I will make sure that I read the cover story. Oh, my God. What the heck is this? Just a second, Dave. Then I'll have your DC and Shuey. Fight. David Coulthard and Michael Schumacher should have a scrap to sort out their differences, reckons John Alesi. It's ridiculous. Their disagreement belongs to kindergarten. I remember Senna and Irvine. They argued and he, Senna, punched him. That was more like motor racing. Judging by Shuey's latest post left, a fight would probably involve handbags. Ooh, let's go. Whoa. Let's go. Woo. I don't know how to do the hand motions here without hitting some equipment. Oh, man, these are all like little editorials. Okay, let's read the main Jacques Villeneuve story after, so he said it was pages 36 to 41. Wow, 5 and then 42 to 48. So what the heck is this? ITV pundit Tony Jardine is a two-timing lover and has a mistress called Cheryl. We jest, obviously, but still couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of the Sun Agony page, Deirdre's photo casebook. Tony told Cheryl that he was taking his wife, Mrs. Jardine, out for a birthday dinner, but the truth was that he was gone away for a while. Long Grand Prix, was it, Tony? And then, oh man, again, just a bunch of little like snippets here. I should almost check into what these are like nowadays. Drive safe, brake like a champion. Brembo. Yeah. That's also a pretty sick shot. Look at the brakes too with the heat there. That's wild. Ear to the ground. If you really want to know what's going on in a Grand Prix, you've got to infiltrate a team. F1 Racing did exactly that. That's kind of an interesting idea. So this must be... Yeah, their whole, like, what it's... Oh, so this is probably that whole thing about what it's like going over an all-nighter and everything. This will be an interesting one for sure. Hot property. First he said he was going to McLaren. First he was going to McLaren, they said. Then to Benetton Renault. Now he's staying put. Matt Bishop unravels the rationale behind Jacques Villeneuve's strategic thinking and explains why he is still as good as it gets. They watched and waited, they being Giancarlo Fisichella and Alexander Wurz, and Jenson Button and Pedro de la Rosa and Olivier Panis and anyone and everyone who felt, rightly or wrongly, that he might be in line to gobble up one of the crumbs about to fall from Jacques Villeneuve's table. This year's heavy scorers at McLaren and Ferrari were staying put. The 2000 silly season, as a result, was all about one man. Kind of like this year with Carlos Sainz. It's easy to see why. Despite not yet having been provided with a winning car from the BAR Reynard Honda package, Villeneuve has this year driven as hard and as fast as Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen, and David Coulthard, and faster and harder than anyone else. It's difficult to stay motivated in such conditions, as Eddie Irvine is proving at Jaguar, yet the Canadian has always been there. His brilliant starts, bold use of track space, and creative race strategies making up for his car's lack of inherent downforce. That reminds me of Albon. Villeneuve's scintillating starts have been one of the main talking points of 2000. Slide ruler. A side effect of Jacques' late on the brakes cornering technique is spectacular oversteer. That's a brilliant shot. He enjoys his downtime, but his professional life is focused on racing. He's often criticized for his reluctance to carry out more than a few days of sponsorship work per year, or for imposing a strict limit on the number of press interviews he holds over a race weekend. Truth be told, others envy him. I need to adjust my seating position here. Okay. He minimizes extraneous commitments to keep his approach to racing, the details of his job in the cockpit uncluttered. Well, that kind of sounds like someone else we know, a little one Max Verstappen. A good example is his system on the starting grid, partly because he wears very loose-fitting overalls. He likes as much freedom of movement as possible, regardless of how he looks alongside others, more neatly tailored. He takes a long time to get settled into the car. He tightens a seatbelt here, loosens one there. He does so in the relative quiet of the BAR garage, in the shade, away from the spotlight. On the other hand, he remains strapped in. He has found his comfort zone, and there he will stay. Before the Canadian Grand Prix, by contrast, Coulthard climbed from his McLaren and spoke to 4 TV crews. He returned to the cockpit, rushing slightly, then stalled his engine. Now he is limiting the number of grid interviews that he conducts to 2. Oof, that's rough. Jacques' scintillating starts have been one of the main talking points of the first half of the 2000 season. He has needed them. Once running in echelon, he has invariably had to drive a defensive race, as he did against Michael Schumacher at Silverstone, against Mika Salo in Melbourne, and, despite a major brake problem, against Ralf Schumacher in Magny-Cours. He appears to expect this going in. He tends to take wing off before the race, sure in the knowledge that he'll pass more than a couple of cars before the first corner, and given the nature of today's regulations, which dictate that overtaking is not something you can ever realistically factor into your tactics, he works his strategy around being quick on the straights. When he was leading solo in Melbourne, he was in constant communication with his race engineer, Jock Clear, wanting to know where the Sauber was quicker and therefore how to adjust his driving style accordingly. Such ploys are typical of the man. He learned in IndyCar how to talk on the radio without compromising his driving, and he alone uses it to its maximum in Formula One. Credit is due to Clear. Spontaneously, and because he knows Jacques so well, he has the ability to distill and pass on exactly the information his driver requires. You know what that kind of reminds me of? Again, that's like the relationship between Verstappen and why am I blanking on the name right now? Is it GP? Anywho, why though has Villeneuve outstarted every other driver this year? Obviously, BAR will not reveal their trade secrets, but it's likely that Honda's engine mapping technology is, shall we say, state of the art. Clearly, also, he practices a lot, but then so do virtually all the rest. Undoubtedly, he has more feel and better reflexes than many of his peers, but is he that much better in these areas than, say, Schumacher or Hakkinen? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. No. What he has done is carefully dissect every part of the start procedure. Dissect it, perfect it, analyze it. The result is there for everyone to see. He uses only a hand clutch, as on most other cars. It's mounted on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. It takes the form of a spring-loaded lever. Release it and you disengage the clutch. Release it gradually and the clutch bites. Drivers will tell you that it's difficult to simulate with your left hand the sensitivity of your left foot, which is why so many spend time practicing their starts. On top of that, the left hand must these days also be attuned to changing gears down the paddle changing down the gears with a paddle mounted very near and slightly above the clutch lever. The upchange paddle is usually mounted behind the right-hand side of the steering wheel. Oh yeah, the good old flappy paddles, huh? Got the paddles down, up. I think we're all pretty used to that nowadays, and I guess clutch somewhere around there. Jacques has a different system. He is able to change the gears up and down on one paddle, mounted on the right. He flicks it towards him to change up, and away from him to change down. His left hand only has one job to do, to release the clutch at exactly the right moment, with exactly the right force. So critical is this movement that he wants nothing to compromise it. That's interesting. Another aspect of the start is the use of the brakes. Many keep their left foot on the brake pedal while they edge out the clutch, and then jab the throttle and release the brake as the red lights go out. Again, Villeneuve appears to be different. We believe he has a handbrake button mounted on the right-hand side of the steering wheel, against which he holds the car as the red lights start to glow. There are plenty out there who will say that a handbrake is no advantage when you're able to brake with your left foot. But how many of them, we wonder, have worked the back-to-back comparison? There is something very immediate about pressing a button that a rapid movement of the left foot cannot match. Finally, Jacques, with a very, very small throttle movement, drives with a very, very Jacques drives with a very, very small throttle movement. This minimizes fuss in the footwell, is in theory faster. He can progress from one throttle position to another in a shorter time with less travel, and may enable him to always find just the right revs off the line. It is also possible that the latest generation of Honda has sufficient mid-range torque for BAR to run a slightly longer first gear than their nearest rivals, minimizing wheel spin and delaying the first change. Alternatively, the team may take the risk of running a slightly longer first gear than they would have if they were qualifying at the front, because their race, at the moment, is not against the Ferraris and the McLarens, but against the midfield mass. In that context, it is worth slightly compromising the overall performance of the car if the reward for that is 4 gained places before the first corner. The start, of course, is only the start. Overall, Jacques drives with the verve of someone who loves every aspect of his craft. Few will forget his perfectly controlled 360-degree spin on Saturday in Austria. Ha! I also remember when Max did a perfectly controlled 360-degree spin. That was so many comparisons we can draw here. The onboard camera showed him slicing and correcting his way through the preceding corners, then charging for the apex grass as he approached the finishing straight. Suddenly, the back end snapped sideways. He locked the brakes, flicked the steering wheel, released the brakes as the car reached 180 degrees, flicked the nose around, and carried on. In the media center, the crowd cheered. Equally, he has the ability to dissolve minuscule jinks on the steering and throttle into an overall vision of smoothness and flow. He drives like Hakkinen in the sense that he brakes very late, turns into a geometrical apex using throttle and steering to balance the car, and lives with oversteer on the exit. He tends to use more curb than Hakkinen on the apex and the exit. He alone has the magical ability to make curb hopping look back. He alone has the magical ability to make curb hopping look like ballet, and that's probably because he grew up around Montreal, and the Gilles Villeneuve circuit is it's all about riding the curbs. No surprise then that he has been on many team principals shortlists over the past few months. He spoke at length to Benetton's Flavio Briatore, who confirmed in Austria that the driver's asking price was in the region of £7 million. In the end, though, he was always most likely to stay at BAR Honda. They are a team in which he has invested time and immense effort, and now, with the input of the Japanese manufacturer, it's beginning to come together. This actually kind of reminds me of Alonso now at Aston Martin. He might have achieved better results at Benetton Renault, although it's difficult to imagine Renault building a significantly better power plant than Honda. But the racing systems and the management philosophy would be different from those with which he has become accustomed. For all BAR's problems over the past 18 months, one of the great positives has been their ability to work around him and his list of priorities. Short of McLaren, where there is no vacancy, and Ferrari, likewise, even if Schumacher would accept him as a teammate, BAR Honda was therefore his best option. Right now, the team have developed into regular point scorers, and it's probable that Jordan's upgrade to full Honda power next season will have a positive knock-on effect. Honda will not overtly pass information from Jordan to BAR or vice versa, but the two teams' performance standards, though direct competition, will undoubtedly rise. Jacques Villeneuve remains a rebel, remains his own man, and F1 is the better for it. Michael Schumacher aside, no one has a stronger, more defined image. He vehemently protects his private life, his music, his computer games, his cars, his boats, his planes, and now, with Danny Minogue by his side, he has never been more content. Except that he wants and needs to win again, because it's very clear that he is better now than he was in 1997 when he took the World Championship and last won a GP. He has made some mistakes, spinning out of a podium place at Monza in 98 springs to mind, and he has had to start afresh with an all-new team. The growing pains are over, though. Very soon, he may well be back where he belongs, racing wheel-to-wheel with the McLaren and the Ferrari drivers, spraying mum with the best of them. Wait and watch. Yeah, and look at that. Look at that picture, yeah? I see what they mean, though, about, like, the loose race suit. But also, like, baggy clothing. That was the style at the time. Jacques in a box. Here's the deal. We show him some stuff and he talks about it. Words by Stefan Sampson. Studio photographs by Michael Jennison. Reportage by Darren Heath. When it comes to an F1 driver... When it comes to it, an F1 driver is just like a carton of orange juice. He needs a good shake so that all the bits don't settle at the bottom. What with bizarre requests and grotesque situations, after 2 years in the paddock, he's surprised by nothing. He utters banalities, gives off pat answers, and ends up sounding like a sales rep. Always on the lookout for new experiences, F1 Racing took up the challenge and suggested the first question-free interview. Driver's task: to pick an object from a box on the table in front of him and say whatever comes into his head. Through this association game, and with a bit of luck, the world of Jacques Villeneuve would reveal itself. The Quebecois bounds into the room, eager to do battle. He quickly takes his seat, greets the F1 racing bods who are witnessing the great events, and slides his hand into the box. He rummages around and brings out something he obviously doesn't like. Why is it always like that? Instead of starting the interview with a nice little chat, he instantly comes across one of the more loaded surprises in our lucky dip. He shudders when he looks at the picture above. Adrian Reynard and Craig Pollock arm in arm. The perfect example of friends in 30 years. His reaction is immediate. Lots like that? He fires in response and puts the photo face down on the table. Great. We've blown the interview. Any second now he'll storm off, slamming the door, never wanting to hear another word from us. What it makes me think of is two false smiles, that's all. He eventually comes out with, it's a partnership which just simply didn't come off. Which just happens sometimes, at all levels. It's a shame when politics get mixed up in things. Jacques has nothing more to say on the subject, but luckily he's smiling when he sees what he draws from our bag next. When he next draws from our bag of bric-a-brac. So he won't be leaving after all. At least that's something. Jacques Villeneuve's reaction, I guess, to the matches, is immediate. It makes me think of a candle at dinner, he says, smiling. We had thought it would make him think of danger. Yeah, it makes me think of that too, he adds. Giving 100% is part of our profession. You have to accept the risks and bear in mind that our sport is dangerous. Has his attitude to danger altered since he came to F1? No. The pleasure of being a driver is just the same, and I haven't changed. If I'm prepared to take big risks for a good place on the grid, it seems stupid to put myself in great danger and only end up 15th. As he's about to delve into the bag, he gives us a bit more. Actually, seeing these matches makes me also think that I'm petrified of fire. I can't bear it if candles are lit around the house. A cat could knock them over. Anything could happen. Fire can wreak havoc. I've been afraid of fire ever since I was a child. Maybe something happened back then. I don't mind knocking into a wall, but my nightmare would be to then see the car engulfed in flames. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. Oh. And it just looks like the rest of this is all going to be some... Oh, God. Really? They put a bag... This is... Well, it's nice to know that journalism's always been kind of lazy, because really, just going to a bag, tell us the first thing you think about was this improv games. But you know what? We could always come back to this another time. Yeah, this is all just stuff that they... Whoops. This is all just stuff that they had around the paddock, clearly, while they were traveling. When they said that he was going to tell us about what makes him tick, I thought they had like a proper interview, not just, oh, here's a bunch of little things and here's what I think about them. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll come back and read them another time, you know? I am the resurrection. In France, they said he'd lost the plot, but his brilliant Austrian win proved them wrong. Can Mika Häkkinen win 3 titles in a row? Can he? And we got some really cool shots here. Yeah, well, you know what? I think we'll just leaf through the rest of this and then we'll call it from here. Oh man, I love the yellow Jordans. I miss Eddie Jordan. We need a Jordan back on the grid. Not like the team necessarily, but Eddie Jordan type. You know, that kind of guy. Oh, Jarno Trulli. Okay, this actually seems like a pretty good interview with the questions and the answers and everything. And then leaving them reeling. Oh, this is the whole Ross Braun and fishing article. Maybe we'll come back to this at some point. Wow, it's actually a pretty big article on like 3 full pages. I love the way that this is all laid out with the photos composed in such a way that they put the text over them. The text is still really easy to read. Like, this is just phenomenal. The production quality of this magazine is incredible. God, I love the British racing green, and I'm glad that Aston Martin has brought it back because Jaguar didn't do so good with it. Or Jaguar. Loyalty, Jean-Alesi Prost. Unbelievable, Mika Salo, Sauber. Faith, Rubens Barrichello, Ferrari. Energy, Jensen Button, Williams. Cool, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Jordan. Fighter, Giancarlo Fisichella, Benetton. 10 great songs in a row, every hour, all day, Virgin Radio. Oh, England, right, that makes sense. Okay, so of course, British magazine, British ads. Young Smoothie, Pedro de la Rosa's silky driving style has always looked good. Now he has the machinery to show just how quick he is. And look at that. It's all thanks to the 821. It's a great car. I can throw it into the corners with confidence. Super Manning. Darren Manning competing in the European Formula 3000 Championship with Team Arden International. And I don't really care all that much about lower formulas. Still don't. Oh, Flavio Briatore article. Man, I should come back and just like read this magazine for like the rest of this month. Just go through all of the articles here. What's new? Yeah, French. Like what's new? What's new? What's new? And then we got more stuff about the tires. That's probably going to be... an F40 in an ad. Gerhard Act to follow. Gerhard Act to follow, like Gerhard Berger. Enjoy every journey. Not long ago, the car was a luxury. TV a distant dream. Now a phone is essential and in-car TV is reality. Not just a TV either. We're talking mobile media entertainment for everyone, including the kids. Check that out. Mario 64. In the car. Let's go. No way. That's wild. See, where I come from, there's a lot less money just flying around, so we didn't get high-end ads for stuff like this. Our ads are all for low-end, cheap stuff. Burning the Midnight Oil. Okay, so this is the one about the overnighter. Let's just look at that picture again. That's a good one. The car cover, too. Now they just take them all apart. Oh, yeah, and here I guess you could buy from the F1 diecast collection. Man, 40 pounds back then. That's expensive. These things cost money. Don't get left behind. Subscribe to F1 Racing for only £8.25 per quarter and save 19%. Oh, boy. Race report. The summer sun has shone on the fortunes of McLaren, says Peter Windsor. Cool. We'll have to check in on this one later. Yeah, there's so much. I thought I would be able to just breeze through a magazine in just in one stream, but I feel like, God, you could just sit here going through this all day. So you know what? Next time we're between race weekends, I think I might sit down and do this. Look at this. Mika's Hungarian Rhapsody. So we're talking about Mika Häkkinen's win there, and then, oh wow, look at all these. They're just beautiful shots too. Look at this, the color composition and everything. Just fantastico. Race shorts, troublesome tail enders, braking temps, and a toothbrush by Tom Clarkson. So then I guess a little quick summary of everybody's race. Ooh, facts about the Hungaro ring. Postcard. It's kind of a shame how this stuff nowadays is, I don't want to say like hard to produce, but nobody's doing this anymore, right? The money just isn't there the way it once was, but I could have sat down and read this for days after Grand Prix. All for one or one for all. A judicious use of tactics can work to the advantage of a driver and his team. Yes, that is true. You should apply team tactics sparingly. They have the potential to do harm as well as good, yes. If you do have to choose one driver to win at the expense of another, it takes careful planning. That is also true. Murray's race preview for Belgium. Oh, man. The pride and the passion. Italy's round of the Formula One World Championship has both in equal measure. Yeah. Look at the Milan Cathedral there. That is wild. And some Panasonic recorders. That's pretty freaking cool. Video recorders. Next month on sale. Jaguar's Year of Hell. We uncover what went wrong for the big cat. Lack of investment. And there we go. Oh, jeez. God. Left the 90s behind, clearly. Trouble is, most of us on the touchlines can't quite figure out precisely where you went wrong. Dear Alex, goodbye, goodbye. If there's a silver lining in this sky, goodbye, old thing, cheerio, chin chin. British humor, Alex, I'm afraid. But I think most of the paddock regrets that your future with Benetton team has become somewhat limited. Yeah. Well, folks, this has been a hoot. If you want to see me do this again, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to see me go through anything specifically in this magazine, happy to do it again. And I guess I don't really have a sign-off line anymore, because Let's Be Fiends Together, I think, was kind of cringe. So, yeah, thanks for watching Fiends, where the F1 never ends, but this broadcast does.